As a young woman becoming increasingly more independent, I have become strikingly aware of sexism and how it affects not only me, but women everywhere. I have tried to focus my schoolwork and activities on breaking stereotypes and understanding how it is possible that even in 2015, women's voices are silenced. At the beginning of this project, I had so many questions about the rampant gender inequality that plagues our society. So I tried to focus on how the government can help achieve a level of equality that is not only written on paper, but can be successfully implemented into all aspects of life. I guided my research with one question: how had the Equal Rights Amendment failed to pass through Congress, and what did that mean for women? I thought that seemed like a fairly good place to start, right? Wrong. Little did I know, I had just opened up a can of worms that would lead me all over the spectrum of gender equality in government, and how descriptive representation is the next step to achieve equal rights everywhere.
Let it be that human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights once and for all.
The Equal Rights Amendment was written by Alice Paul, a suffragist leader and founder of the National Woman's Party. After women gained the right to vote, Alice Paul believed that women should be on equal terms with men in all regards, even if that meant sacrificing certain benefits given to women through protective legislation such as shorter work hours and no night work or heavy lifting. The amendment was first introduced to Congress in 1923. From 1923 to 1972, the Equal Rights Amendment was introduced into every session of Congress. Working-class women originally opposed the amendment because it took away certain protections against working hours, but they still supported a movement for equality. With the support of the Democratic Party, in 1972, the Equal Rights Amendment passed both houses of Congress and was submitted to the state legislatures for ratification. Congress had set a ratification deadline of March 22, 1979. Through 1977, the amendment received 35 of the necessary 38 state ratifications. It seemed that the amendment would pass, until Phyllis Schlafly, a leader of a conservative women's opposition party, began a campaign against the Equal Rights Amendment, stating it would disadvantage housewives, as they have more rights than their working husbands. Schlafly's campaign stated that protective laws like sexual assault and alimony would be swept away, and that the tendency for the mother to receive child custody in a divorce case would be eliminated. She also said that the all-male military draft would become immediately unconstitutional, and women would be forced to join the draft. 5 states later rescinded their ratifications before the 1979 deadline. In 1978, a joint resolution of Congress extended the ratification deadline to June 30th of 1982, but no further states ratified the amendment, and it died. To clarify the absurdity surrounding the controversial Equal Rights Amendment, let me read the direct text. The amendment states, "Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex." 84% of countries guarantee gender equality in their constitutions, including Afghanistan. Only 32 constitutions do not include an explicit gender equality guarantee. The U.S. Constitution is one of them. Though parts of the Constitution, like the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, may appear to protect women, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia has said that this isn't the case. Certainly the Constitution does not require discrimination on the basis of sex. The only issue is whether it prohibits it. It doesn't, he said in January of 2011. I continued to wonder why this amendment could not pass, and went to Jennifer Lawless, director of the Women and Politics Institute and professor of government at American University, to try to understand why, and what else can be done.
If you think about the Constitution, it's only been amended 17 times since the Bill of Rights, and so the bar is so high that I don't know that it's practical, even though obviously I support everything it would do. Women in every presidential election cycle have been more likely than men to favor the Democratic candidate. In every congressional election cycle since 1986, they've been more likely to favor Democrats, and Democratic candidates have responded to that. So men and women alike, if they're running on the Democratic side, are far more likely to push an agenda that is inclusive of issues that have to do with women, families, and children.
After speaking with Ms. Lawless, I began to realize that the issue is larger than anything an amendment could do. Although the amendment supported women's rights, it created gridlock. I came to the conclusion that a more effective way to achieve gender equality in respect to the law is to elect congressional officials that would fight for women's issues. And who better to do that than a congresswoman? I began to realize if women were elected into government positions, then their voices could represent the female perspective that is lacking in Congress. I spoke with Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky on the issue of female representation in government and who can best represent women's rights.
Well, we're 108 women out of 435 now in the House, so not that many, really, if you think about it, and then 20 out of 100 in the Senate. So I don't think have really hit the critical mass of women that we're going to need to really make a difference. Well, I'll tell you, we have never seen. I've been in Congress now. I'm finishing up my 17th year. And when I got there in 1999, I went in 98, came in 99, we had a bipartisan pro-choice caucus that is supporting women's reproductive rights, including abortion rights, Republicans and Democrats. Not as many Republicans, but there was no protests from other Republicans of those who joined that caucus. Now, men and women alike on the Republican side of the aisle, except for one man, are anti-choice and helping in the attack on Planned Parenthood, even on contraception, which they zeroed out in their budget. So I've never seen anything quite like what's going on, even before the attack on Planned Parenthood over the weekend.
It seemed clear to me now. If Democratic women were able to support one another and get more women to office, then women's issues would be accurately represented. So I wondered, why is it so hard for women to get to office? To answer this question, I spoke with Diane O'Dean, a River Falls, Wisconsin City Council member who participated in a program called Emerge America, intended to help Democratic female leaders become active in politics.
What does it say that we can't pass it? I mean, it says to me that it's controversial whether women are equal citizens or not. And just the act of passing it would create a public discussion about it. There's so many forms of inequality in our country, and every time we turn around, there's some new form that gets a lot of attention, like Black Lives Matter or the Occupy movement, and those are all very important. But one of the things that all groups share is gender. So, what does it say that we can't even agree that women are equal and should be treated equally? I went to a training program. You might have heard about this from Rebecca, called Emerge. It's a nationwide program, and it's currently got branches in 14 states, and it's expanding to 2 more. And it trains Democratic women to run for office. There are weekend sessions, one weekend per month for 6 months, with a class of approximately, in Wisconsin, it's been approximately 20 women. So you get to know how to do the nuts and bolts, because traditionally women have been told, women believe that they're not qualified. I mean, if they're asked for office, they're like, oh, I don't have the qualifications for that. And there are a number of other programs encouraging women to run for office, but I think you certainly need programs like that, because if you look nationwide, just the statistics, and you look at, there are barriers. There's some reproductive rights issue within the last couple of years, and it was a panel of all older white men. I don't think they can make, without having women's voices at the table, they might make a just decision, but it would almost be accidental. And the process, I think, would not be just.
I was able to speak with Rebecca Bonesteel, who works with the Democratic Party of Wisconsin to get more women involved in government. She believes that the current Congress is not able to advocate for women's issues, and explained to me what she is doing to fix that.
That's why I'm working very hard to get more women elected to every level of government. But I, being who I am, I'm focusing on local offices.
Mm-hmm.
They call it building a bench. So it's proven that if you can get women into, even on the city council or the school board or the county board, they're more apt to run for higher office later on down the road.
I had finally come to a conclusion. Although the Equal Rights Amendment is necessary in order to address equality, it will not solve for the systemic sexism and the gender bias that reinforces the idea that women are political outsiders. The most effective way to create equality is to foster programs that address inequality and teach women how to run for office so that more female voices can be involved in legislation.
I'm so emotional, I'm going to press on. It brings tears to my eyes to know how women every single day are working so hard and are getting paid less. It makes me emotional to hear that.
And the number one thing that I hear over and over and over again, everywhere I go, is why isn't Washington listening to us?
Although we weren't able to shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling this time, thanks to you, it's got about 18 million cracks in it.
The Constitution continues to be the blueprint of what our values are in this country. And certainly we believe that equal rights should be enjoyed by everyone.